Hello, everyone. I'm Thom, and since this coronavirus disruption started, I've been hosting this vlog to eat beef jerky and talk to you on the internet. I'm not a food critic, so the beef jerky part is silly and pointless. But this vlog has let me explore some fun ideas with you, especially regarding game design, and I plan to keep doing it. Here we are on the 12th of October, almost halfway through the month of October in the year of our Lord 2020. Um, and we're very close to the election. Uh, and I have an opinion about that, which is that you should vote. Uh, this is the 49th episode of my beef jerky vlog, which means the next episode is going to be the 50th. And you're certainly supposed to do something special for the 50th. Frankly, I don't know what. Um, and I'm not sure uh, what I'm going to do about the 50th, but it will have to be something, won't it? Right now, my thinking is simply to maybe, I don't know, wear a suit. Um, or maybe add an extra graphic. Let's try that. But if you have any ideas, please comment below and on the YouTube channel or on Facebook. Um, what I would like to talk about now is simply this. It's time to vote. It's time to vote. And one of the easiest ways to know how to vote has been presented to us by the Stephen Colbert evening nightly show, whatever. BetterKnowAbout.com. It's awesome. It's simple. It's easy. You get right to it. Pick your state. It'll tell you everything you need to know. It's a great resource. And the important thing here is that you vote. Uh, Frankly, I don't care who you vote for so long as you vote. After all, democracy literally means force of the people, people force, democracy. And when you don't vote, there's no people. So there's a power vacuum, and criminals and con men rush in to take it. Vote, absolutely, because if you don't vote, bad people will win. All right. Um, that's enough about voting to start with, but we'll also finish the show by talking about voting, because that's what we're doing in my beef jerky vlog for the next, I don't know, 25 days or whatever until the election. It's so important that you vote. If you haven't voted before, you should do so now. As I said, when you don't vote, other people you don't want to vote will win. All right. So let's talk about game ideas and game topics. Um, Actually, before I turn that on, um, I've made several episodes talking specifically about lesser known genres. And I think that what I'm about to talk about is a good transition away from that. But the bottom line is that while there are lesser known genres, it's actually kind of hard to dredge them up. They're lesser known for a reason. Um, so I think I'm going to go back to talking more generally about general topics of conversation and thoughts that I have um, that are, uh, you know, that are less focused, or at least less focused in terms of structure, much like this episode. Um, so at any rate, let's talk about gotcha games. So, what are gotcha games? Um, they're casino gambling, for better or worse. I mean, I know that what I'm saying is a little outrageous, and I kind of mean it to be, but I don't kind of mean it to be. I don't mean to say that gotcha games need to be heavily regulated instantly, though I myself, as a citizen, have always been down on casinos too, and I always thought they were essentially a blight on our society. Um, and that's kind of a completely different topic of casinos and how I don't like them and how I don't like how gambling games and gambling uh, uh, structures in our society would like to blend and blur the distinction between a slot machine and a PlayStation 4. And I think that's wrong, and I don't think anybody should let them. But anyway, we're specifically talking about gotcha games. What are gotcha games? Gotcha games are normal games. You do something with the game just like you would do. You win, you lose, you battle, you do all the normal verbs that a game would do, whatever those are. However, the gotcha comes in terms of your kind of course upgrades in this particular game, and in many gotcha games, um, the upgrade comes from getting more characters. Here I have 3 characters in my dungeon party, and they're okay, but I could get a super red mage that's super okay, and it's much, much better than okay, and I could then have a red mage, and my party will be stronger and go deeper into the dungeon. How do I get that red mage? Well, traditionally in video games, you got the red mage by going to a specific place and doing a specific quest. And of course, that's gated, so you couldn't do that right at the beginning of the game. You had to do that basically at the middle of the game when getting the red mage was kind of preordained. Or alternatively, in some RPG games, especially initially when Western computer RPGs, but then also in games like Final Fantasy, the earlier stuff, you could get a red mage by basically rolling for it by picking a new character from the new character creation menu. And sometimes that's easy and cheap, and other times it's hard and requires a lot of built up gold or whatever. But the bottom line is that you could you could add that new character to your party through normal game mechanics, spending normal in-game currency that you got by stabbing monsters, like every RPG. And while I say RPG, don't mean necessarily that the gotcha games are an RPG thing. They are much wider than that. Though, especially on mobile devices, they tend to show up in RPG and tactical RPG games because those games kind of lend themselves to having these characters that you would then pick and choose and collect and use. But the point is that in all these games, getting new characters to join your party, getting new things that up the power of your game so that you can go further, is nothing new under the sun. So what's special about Gotcha? Well, Gotcha is about the idea that if you have, say, 20 characters that you could choose to add to your party, you don't. The mechanism to get them is generally random. And more specifically, instead of saying, well, there are 20 different characters I can add to my party, I will choose the red mage and I will hit the button and add red mage and now I'm done. No, no, you don't do that. In a gotcha system, you take some of your points in your game, your gold or your experience or whatever, and you essentially roll randomly. You choose to pick a card from the deck randomly, one of the 20. So you only got a 20% chance. Sorry, you've only got a 1 in 20 chance to get the red mage you want. And this means that if you want to ensure that you get the red mage, you have to spend a lot more of these in-game tokens, this gold or experience or whatever, and keep doing the random choosing out of the deck, the random roll, the random whatever, until you finally get your red mage that you were looking for. And this seems dumb and frustrating, and yeah, it is, absolutely. But the kicker here is that it's in gotcha games, it's generally assumed that you're not just using in-game currency. You're not just using gold or experience points that you've gathered by playing the game. You can also use real-world money to get those points. In this case, in this screen, it looks like you gotta have a Saint Quartz. Saint Quartz is the currency you're going to have to choose to hit the big yellow button that says 1 time summon or the big yellow button that says 10 times summon. These are rolls. These are random. You hit the button and you get a random character. Whether you get the random character you want or not is tough. It's up there. It's a random roll. At least you think it is. Um, so why do I use the word gotcha? It's because this kind of the style started in Japan with what were called gotcha machines. Um, and in America, we know them too. We know them as gumball machines. Basically, it's a machine that's in the lobby of a grocery store or a toy store or some other store. You go, you put in a quarter, you spin the knob, and you get a toy in a little bubble, or you get a pack of gum, or you get something that comes out of the machine because you gave it a coin. This is nothing new to America, but in Japan, they have much more of a kind of a vending machine culture. Vending machines are much bigger and much more complex and much more technically fancy and expensive and cool than they are in America. You go to Japan, you'll see vending machines, amazing vending machines, on every corner that can serve you any kind of cold or hot meal and any kind of toy or device. All of it's available by vending machine in Japan. And of course, in the past, the vending machines were just like American vending machines. It's mechanical. You put the coin in, you turn the knob, and you get what you get. You you know, you That's the machine. So the gotcha concept is just a derivation of that in the toy direction. So you've got a gumball machine essentially filled with little plastic spheres that each have a little toy inside. And so when you put your quarter in and you turn the crank, you're not guaranteed to get the toy you want. You're guaranteed to get a random toy from the set. And if you want to get the toy you want, you've got to keep feeding it quarters and keep having it spit out little balls with little toys inside until you get the toy you want. That's gotcha. That's where the Japanese term gotcha comes from. Um, and so the electronic version of that is still called gotcha, even though there's no actual machine, actual physical ball. There's still, you put some coins in and you randomly get one of the things that you may or may not want. So to get the thing you want, you should keep putting coins in. The very essence of the gotcha philosophy. So why is gotcha so popular? It's because of the kind of psychological, social structure of gambling, of casinos as a whole. And if you've studied casinos at all, you've heard the term whale. Um, in a casino without slot machines, that is a more traditional casino with music and gambling and food and a buffet and um, uh, blackjack and keno and all these other more kind of classic gambling games. The basic truth, as I understand it, is that, and I have some acquaintances in the industry who are way more facile with gambling games and the gambling game structure than I am. But as I understand it, the whale is where they make their money. You get a bunch of blackjack tables. You get a bunch of craps tables, and you get a bunch of people in the room playing. The vast majority of those people are not giving enough money to the establishment to make the establishment financially worthwhile. What you got to do is you got to have the very few people who are rich people who are willing to walk in the room and lose $10,000. Whales. And because they lose $10,000, they often make $10,000 because that's the way the gambling setup works. It's just, you're up one day, you're down the next, but the house always wins. So average out, the house always wins, but it needs to win generally through whales, which is to say people who are willing to go and spend a lot of money and a chance to win a lot of money. Um, Now that's actually not true for modern gambling establishments because of slot machines. Slot machines, especially the modern electronic slot machines, are designed so that they can break that rule, and so that instead of making money only on whales, they're now making money off of every grandma who comes through the door and spends $10. Um, But that's a kind of an aside thing. The point is that whales are a thing. And for a lot of gambling and a lot of gambling mechanics, the whale is where the money's really made. And that's certainly true of Gotcha. The idea is that there are games that are gotcha games, and generally they're offered for free to the public. So 99 out of 100 people play and don't pay, and they have fun, and it's a giant loss for the company. However, the one out of that 100 people pays and pays for gotcha and pays not insignificant amount of money, and that covers that puts the company in the black. That's more than enough money for those 99 people to have gotten a free game. That's kind of the point of gotcha. And if you look at the screen again, it's fascinating in several ways. First off, it's very much an advertisement, which is why it's so busy. You look at it, and it's hard to find information on this page because there's so much information and so much going on. And I had to dig around and understand and look. Oh, wait, I guess it's summon quartz that I use Saint quartz. Saint quartz, and I have to spend 3 of them to get 1 summon and 30 of them to get 10 summons. Um, and there's a box here under Napoleon pickup summon that says 10 times summon will have one 4-star SR or above card guaranteed plus one 3-star R or above servant guaranteed. So those are extra rules that kind of spice up the deal. It's guaranteed that if you spend more money than less money, you will get a better deal on your random roll. Guaranteed! And what is the deal? Well, what is an SR or an R? I don't know. It's hopefully explained to you in the game, but if you've ever played a gotcha game, you'll actually see a screen like this fairly early in the game. And it's very confusing to somebody who's never played the game before, and certainly have never played a gotcha game before. You're like, my gosh, this is so busy. This is the opposite of most games where they start you small and they lead you by the hand with a tutorial. This is very busy. This is obviously an advertisement. This is as busy and as loud as a billboard. And for the same reason, it's to jump out at you and sell, sell, sell. And to jump at you and sell, sell, sell at the beginning of your experience with a game is weird and unusual. It's not for gotcha whales. What I'm trying to say is that a whale is almost certainly a person who has already played multiple gotcha games. So they understand how it works. They got all the understanding. They figured it out. They've seen it all. So an advertisement to a gotcha whale is going to make a lot more sense than to that person than to just a random Joe off the street. But if your game is designed to make money off of whales, then while theoretically you're making a game that's free to play for 99 out of 100 people, the truth is that you frankly don't care about those 99 people. You're giving them a free game, so you owe them nothing and screw them. And so you'll see these design decisions instead of the game being careful about teaching you how to play and leading you by the hand. No, they just throw a billboard like this at you right away. And it almost is a weed out thing. If you don't know what gotcha is, if you've never played a game like this before, you look at this and go, ooh, you bounce off. It's too complex. It's too loud. It's not for you, obviously. So you leave. And you know what? That's exactly what the gotcha game operator wants. It's a filter so that only whales come through the door because that's the only people who make them any money. Um, so I think in that way it's quite fascinating and very much transgressive to the concepts, the larger concepts of video game design and how you make video games and how you get people to play your video game. Um, but And I guess the reason that I'm talking about Gotcha now is because I'm playing a Gotcha game. There's a game that just came out on many platforms called Genshin Impact, um, and it's everything we've been talking about. It's surprisingly bright and colorful and complicated and interesting and fun and free to play. And for people like me, it's always going to be free to play, and they're not going to get any money out of me, even though they obviously spent a great deal of money making the game, and it shows because there's a lot of game that is accessible for me, the player. One would certainly expect that if it's a free game, well, let me reset that statement. In America, in the early 90s, the shareware model of one third was defined by the game Doom and other games like it. The idea was that you would give the first third of the game away for free and use it as an advertising mechanism for the other two thirds of the game, which you then had to pay for. Now, the transport mechanisms and how you bought the game and how you got a copy of the game were very different because the internet was nascent. But the bottom, it doesn't change the fact that for a good game, that old shareware model, one third, still can work just fine. And especially in the modern age, if you set it up like that, you can play the first third of the game and then immediately have a nice screen that says, $4.99 to continue playing, and you'll get two new worlds. Press here to pay, and then you press here, you pay, you're done, and you get it, and it's open immediately. So in the modern age, the one third, two third rule is actually even easier on the user, and frankly easier on the developer too. Since the developer doesn't actually have to take an order over the phone and actually ship a disc in a mailing envelope, which, trust me, I did and everybody did, and it was a giant hassle. So not have to do that anymore is amazing. So the old ways of marketing video games can still work just fine, but this Genshin Impact has a gotcha model, and it means several things. It means that a busy screen like the one I showed you is definitely in Gotcha, is definitely in Genshin Impact. Uh, it also means that an interesting kind of substructure exists in Genshin Impact and in a lot of other gotcha games, which is that I was just saying that in a normal game, I want the red mage, so I'm going to spend maybe gold, or maybe I'm going to spend experience points. And there might be maybe a third currency of honor points or something that you got by killing bosses. You kill three bosses, you get three honor points, and then that's enough for a red mage. That's old school non-gotcha way of thinking. But I've just defined essentially three currencies, three different things that the game keeps track of that you can use, spend, gain, and lose. And in a lot of games, you can't really even lose experience. So, currency is it's complex layers of currency are not really considered that normal in computer role playing games or more computer games. And the reason for that is simply that it's confusing to have 10 different currencies. Nobody would have 10 different currencies because it would just be confusing and frustrating to players. Why not just have gold? Why not just spend gold and everything gets gold? Um, the gotcha games have a completely different point of view, which leads them to excessively complex currency structures. And there's absolutely no doubt that Genshin Impact has some of that. So you have probably a dozen different kinds of points and stars and tiers and bits and whatever. And they all do different things, and there are screens that track them all. And it's very confusing. So, why would the developer of a gotcha game even have such a confusing thing? And the answer is to basically work with the psychology of humans to make them pay you more money. Because if it's really simple, if it's just gold and you need 30,000 gold to get the red mage, or you need 30,000 gold for a gotcha pull, as they call it, and they call it pull because it's like a pull of a handle in a slot machine. So you get a random thing after you pull. So if it's 10,000 gold for a pull and that's it and simple, then it's actually fairly easy to do the math of, well, if I spent $5 of my actual real world money to get 10,000 gold, how many pulls would that get me? And how much am I going to have to pay to get the red mage? Well, these calculations are important so that you don't spend way too much real world money. And that's exactly why gotcha game manufacturers want to obscure that. They absolutely want to make it hard to do the math to figure out how many real world human dollars you're going to have to pay to get the red mage. That obviously is well, yeah, immoral and indefensible in my opinion. Um, but I can't control this. I can't say, nobody came to me and said, "Thom, is gotcha okay?" So I'm only reporting. It's not like I can control it. Uh, but because I'm playing Genshin Impact now, and I think for what it is, it's a reasonably fun game. I certainly haven't paid any cash money into it, and I don't actually expect or intend to. Um, it's just something that bemuses me, makes me go, how about that? Um, but at the same time, I thought it was a fascinating aspect of modern video game development. Um, so I wanted to comment on it at length, which I have, blah, blah, blah. So enough of that. Let's get to the main event, which is the jerky. In past videos, you may have seen me um, eating Think brand jerky. And I had a 4-pack of variety pack, and this is the last of that pack. It is sesame teriyaki. I fully expect it to be fine because the other Think jerkies that I ate were good, neither too hot nor too bland. Um, not not in any way standing out super bad or super good. So I expect essentially the same here, but we'll find out right now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is. I don't think this beef jerky would offend anyone's palate. And as you can see, sesame teriyaki is going to be sweet and salty, but not too hot. And that's exactly what it is. Is it bold? I don't think so, but that's relative to all the other jerky I've eaten. I think that it'll be a little bit bolder than some people are used to, if they're only used to um, the most popular store brands. Um, but there's bolder out there by far. Um, I would say this is eminently edible, but not something that you're going to remember eating weeks from now. Okay, I'm glad we did all that so that we can get to the mailbag. Been a little while since my last video, I think about a week. Enough time for the mailbag. And here it is. I've got two messages from Doug Reichard and Adam Para. I'm going to start with Doug because in the last video we did two things that are being commented on here. First is my talking about um, artillery games, where I talked about how some of the distinctions of artillery games included having lots and lots of different kinds of bullets or projectiles that did different things, and also how Scorched Earth introduced the idea of uh, a deformable terrain to the genre. And Doug Reichart says, I'm not sure you classify them as the same, but Populous, the old game Populous, had terrain manipulation. And you're right, Doug, that's exactly what Populous had, was terrain manipulation. He says, I think of Populous as my first RTS, real-time strategy game. and also network gameplay. And I agree. You could certainly make the argument that that is a nascent, an early RTS, and I definitely played Populous head to head over a wire between two computers. So I agree. Network gameplay was right there. He also says, I also played a game called Fracture on the Xbox, which used terrain manipulation in a third person shooter. I enjoyed it, but I may have been the only one because it did poorly in the market. Yeah, it's definitely not, it definitely would have sank. I don't think it was a hit by anybody's stretch of the imagination. But I remember it too. And yeah, so terrain manipulation is definitely not something that is only in artillery games. It's just that the way the artillery games worked in a fundamental side view 2D world, at least initially, led them to a particular form of deformable terrain, which was pixel based. In a 3D game presentation with a 3D world, you're kind of, you're not you're not normally you you're either showing the world as a bunch of polygons, which can be modified by adjusting their vertexes, or you're showing the world as a bunch of voxels, 3D pixels. Um, and that's a kind of more analogous to the old 2D pixel deformable terrain. Voxels, of course, being the kind of thing you see in Minecraft and in many other games, actually, because voxels are not a new technology. Um, but and I agree with you. Populous has the terrain manipulation. Fracture has the terrain manipulation. That definitely does not make them artillery games. But I know you didn't say that. I was just pointing out that there are pieces of different genres that define those genres that are also present in other genres. It's just that a genre is defined more than just by one piece. Um, so you not only in an artillery game do you get deformable terrain, but you get the targets and the turn-based battle and the limited movement and the massive set of bullets or projectiles. Um, these are all pieces that define an artillery game. Uh, Thank you for replying, Doug. Um, and yeah, if you guys can find Fracture or Populous, please play them because they're neat classic old games. All right. At the end of the last episode and the end of several other episodes, I also said let's play a new game called Now That's a Game, where somebody would do a blank the blank with the blank the blank and define a game, and we'd talk about it, kind of for fun, but also just to talk about game development in general. And Adam Para replies and says I'll play, and then he says a delivery truck driver delivering merchandise in a truck on a schedule. All right, surprisingly enough, that sounds like a great game, Adam. And actually, I know that it exists. It's called Euro Truck Simulator, which is out now on Steam. Euro Truck Simulator. I think there's a spin-off called American Truck Simulator or U.S. Truck Simulator or whatever. But the bottom line is, it is definitely a simulator first. So it's a very detailed uh, imagining of how to drive a truck. And it's and most of what you do is literally drive a truck and get out on the road and go from place to place, following a virtual GPS system. However, in Euro Truck Simulator and in a lot of other truck simulators, you definitely have an overlaid game of delivering cargo and delivering cargo on a schedule. So that covers it. Your Euro Truck Simulators and things like that are definitely popular and fun games that have that gameplay of having to a deliver merchandise on a schedule. Now, having said that, um, there's something a little bit similar that I played earlier this year. Um, Dang it, what's it called? It's about driving trucks through the mud of Michigan and Alaska. Um, Hard truck or something like that. But yeah, I probably mentioned it at some point. But that's more of a kind of a mission-based game, but you're still delivering cargo, and some of the missions are timed, so you have a schedule. So yeah, that's a great idea, Adam, and it's great enough that other people have already done it. Is that reason not to do it? No. As an aside, I would like to say that, interestingly enough, if you see other people making your great idea, that doesn't mean you don't make your great idea. You still make your great idea. What that does is validate you because other people had the same great idea, so it must be a really good, great idea. So when you have a great idea, like, delivery truck driver, it's going to be awesome. And then you go out there and you say, oh, look, there are 2 or 3 or 4 games that already do that. Do not despair. Do not say, I guess I can't make that game because everybody already made it. First off, it's probably not everybody. There are a lot more RPGs, a lot more RTSs, a lot more first person shooters than there are delivery truck simulators. So the market's probably not saturated. And second off, again, if other people had the same great idea, that only validates your great idea. And there's always space in the marketplace. Where I know we're getting on a side, and I know this video is going very long, but my Artemis game I've been surprised at how little competition I've gotten in my space. But there is still some competition. There are still some people out there who are making bridge simulator space games in direct competition with my Artemis Spaceship Bridge Simulator game. And I welcome them because they validate the idea, they grow the total market, and and frankly, they show me better ways of doing things. If you have a competitor and they're blowing you away because they've got 3 features you don't have, what's to stop you from adding those 3 features to your own game and reclaiming some market share? That's frankly the very essence of software capitalism. So don't be afraid. I think the delivery truck driver game is neat, and even if you put even a little bit of spin on it, like it's futuristic trucks or underwater trucks or trucks driven by Albanians. I don't know. Um, there's probably a space in the marketplace for it, and the existing simulators can show the way. All right. So I am going to talk one more time about how important it is as an American to vote right now. I would like to say that even though tyranny is always a wolf at the door, the number one way we keep tyranny from taking over is by voting. Voting is the essence of protecting ourselves from essentially not having democracy anymore. When you vote this year, it's like guaranteeing you can vote next year. Actually, an ancient old Pogo comic strip contained that quote, but it has stuck with me all my life. So please vote. Yeah, so sesame teriyaki. It's good. Nothing wrong with it. Not super bold, not super memorable, but okay. Alright, thanks for watching. I will keep making these videos, if nothing else, because I need to tell people to vote as often as I can, including you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.